Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to be focused on design productivity trainings. We went from the training map number one, which I'll reiterate those trainings because it's good to learn these ingredients, these must like these frameworks. So, clarity, goal, planning, and practice. We went through design energy, design clarity, and today we're going to talk about design productivity. And the next week, we'll be talking about design impact. And then that will be the end of training map number 2, and then we'll go into the last training map for the last month. And this one's really important because I think that when we're thinking about, like, productivity, it's definitely one of the high performance habits. Like, we have to be thinking about how are we being productive in our lives. Can you design your life to be a little bit more productive? You can absolutely design your life to be more productive, but to do that, you need to understand your surroundings. You need to understand these all these levers, and that's what we've been doing the last couple of weeks. We were talking about design energy, which is like the systems that you build to sustain that high design energy throughout the year. The design clarity is about how you interact with people. But when you want to be productive with your teams or with your like anybody that you work with, it's about playing in harmony. It's about playing in a rhythm. And you see this a lot in sports. And I equate a lot of these things to sports because to be an athlete, you have to play as a team, unless you're wrestling or unless you're swimming. You're doing that one on one. If you're in a meet, you're competing together. But like in baseball and football and in soccer, you have to learn about your team's strengths, their weaknesses, their opportunities, where they're going to be. You have to know how you're going to help them skate to where the puck's going to go or pass within the stride. Every runner's a little bit different. Every player has a different style of how they play or how they communicate to you. So today, we're going to really dive deep into that. And the exercise that we'll do today is going to be an exercise to help you quickly map your team and map out a couple other things. Like we're going to map out our team, our growth circle, like the people around you. We're going to map out our growth loop. We're going to map out quickly our project passions, personal and career. And then I'm going to show you how to do it all in Figma. But you can obviously just take your piece of paper and ride along with me because I want this to be like the most impactful hour that you've ever spent, like this week, maybe at all. Like it's going to be very impactful. So let's dive into this. So thanks for that little preamble here. All right. Today for design productivity, we're optimizing our design effectiveness. So as we scale, learn, and grow. So we're all learning, we're all scaling. The systems that we build, they're constantly growing and learning, and we're growing too. So we need to be in optimization mode right now this week. I want you to be thinking about things and areas of your projects, your life, things that you do. Where can you optimize? So the three core focus areas where you can optimize when you're trying to build better design productivity, we're going to be optimizing our systems. We're going to be optimizing our craftsmanship. We're going to be optimizing our velocity management. And velocity management is just like literally understanding how you can like put on more gas, put your foot down on the gas a little bit more, or you need to be able to tone it back a little bit, depending on how your team is set up and how your team works. But you need to know how to be able to move things faster. You need to know that so clearly. And we'll learn about that today. So the systems, right? The amount of quality output that you create is mirrored by your quality of your systems. The amount of your quality out, how much you can create, the quality of that, it's mirrored by the quality of your systems. And we'll do that today. In craftsmanship, it's not about how much you do, but it's about how well you do it. So you can create a ton of things and think that it's going to help your team. And I tell this to designers and product thinkers and engineers all the time. Like you, you just don't you don't create just to show that you can create. I can make designs all day long, but if the craftsmanship is not quality, if it's not something that you can actually love, then it's actually just not that impactful. The other thing, come back. Okay, here we go. And velocity management is just thinking about like the tempo, the pace, the things you do, and how you integrate those into your rituals, your routines, and your rhythms. Now, I think these things, I talk about them a lot in these last couple of weeks because your rhythm sets that tone for how you show up every day, how your team shows up in your meetings, and The rhythm of how you show up with your family, your spouse, your partner, whoever, like that system, it starts to become so we got to be able to do that. My name is Drew Bridewell. I'm head of product and design at Growth Day. I'm also founder of Next Level UX and host of Practical UX Weekly on LinkedIn Learning. So I'm super pumped to dive into design productivity with you today. And I show this every week because I think it's really important to know like the history of where you go. And I want you to also take a moment to think about your past history, the last, you know, 5, 10, 15 years. Where have you spent your energy and how well have you produced, would you say, like your design productivity for maybe how you code things or maybe how you produce? Has your productivity been really good? Are you usually the person on your team that is fast and you get things done? Or are you typically the person on your team that's always behind, always chasing, and just just like really the one that's just chasing your team and you don't feel like you're ever caught up? I think about the first time that I ever felt that and I look at back at these companies and I think about why hasn't that happened so much in my career? Like, why haven't I been in this position where I'm like chasing? And I think it's because of how, like, one, how my college professors would train us to document and define all the little details of the things that we were doing every day. And what I didn't know what they were training us to do was they were teaching us to journal or about our projects. And in my mind, I didn't really know I was journaling. I didn't really know at the time, but what we were doing, we were documenting every day the 5, 10, 15 things that we were doing around the project. So my professors had a worksheet that they gave us a part of the training, and we would have these worksheets that we would fill out what we did. And I think what that was doing was allowing us to see when you wrote those things out, were these impactful? Were these helpful? Were these a good use of time? Was this helping the project move forward? Was this solving a problem? And you start to ask those questions. And this, we're learning about design. We're in college. And every company that I went to after that, I took those practices and I kept building them into each of these companies and teams. And then when I got into, I say in that second row of companies, like where's the LinkedIn's and Visions, the Facebooks, the Stanford, like learning about those teams, I started to see that these teams were already performing at the highest levels because they had incredible systems, incredible rhythms, incredible tempo. And they knew where they needed to be before the play had even started. They knew what was needed out of their teams before the project even started. So the preparation that goes into how you start thinking about your projects and your work, it really goes into how you design it way ahead of when you actually do the work. All the things that we do in preparation for having a really world-class team in a world-class environment is we prepare for it. We visualize it. We know what it's going to take before we actually get to the moment where we're doing it. And then we go when we're showing up on the field and we start doing the plays, we know how to perform. We're not trying to learn how to perform while we're performing. And this is a really important takeaway. So when you go in and you start thinking about your history, you're going to pull from the best. You're going to pull from the things that worked really well. But the things that are going to help you from now and on for any projects you take on, it's going to be the quality of your systems. It's going to be the quality of how you manage your velocity management. It's going to be about how you bring a higher level of craftsmanship into your work so you can wow people, so you can impress people, so that you can also add so much value that it's just hands down the most important thing that she should be doing. So let's keep going. And it takes me back also into the days where I was playing ball and thinking about those moments. So when you're thinking about, okay, how can you be efficient and effective on the field? You're learning the systems. These are some of the systems and things that I was creating back in the day. And then also as we go through and we learned about design energy last week, all the or the last couple weeks, all the routines, all the rituals, all those things, those still have to be designed, right? The quality of those sessions when we're thinking about design clarity, we still have to maintain our communication, our collaboration, how we elevate that work, how maybe we need to reframe things that are going on, the timing of those things, how we focus. Still got to think about it. What are the objectives of those projects? the timelines of those projects, and then how those projects all map back to you, all map back to your initiatives, all map back to your passions, your purpose, your career, your projects. It's all going to map back to it. And then you can tie in these values and principles that you're working from within. You're have a solid approach for how you're going to take things and take them forward. So this was what I was showing earlier around the goal of design productivity is to optimize your design effectiveness. Could be like, how effective are you when you have something that you need to do? And how effective are you about applying it and doing it really quick? You learn something new. Can you test it and try it out? So we're optimized, we're designing, and we're scaling. This is so that we can have better flow. We can produce better and see results faster. So if you're a highly effective design productivity team, then it's allows you when you get a new request or a new system, you can deploy the system so that your team can move way faster. And I'm going to give you a ton of examples of this, but even just one example today is we have a new feature coming out for Growth Day. And this new feature that's coming out is just it's so it's such a big feature for our product ecosystem. Some of our marketing team, they were traveling on vacation, so they didn't really have they weren't necessarily thinking about this feature, and it just happened. They weren't thinking about the feature like months ago. They knew it was coming, but they didn't know when it was coming, and it came really fast. So in this scenario, my task was to head of product and design was like, "Hey, Drew, can you create a highlight reel of this? Can you create like a hype video of this?" And I'm like, "Sure." Because of the systems that I already had in place around like the design artifacts, I was able to essentially create in a couple hours like a strategy for this or a story for this video, a pitch deck for this video, script for this video, all the artifacts needed for this video because I had a design system, I have the narrative, I have the team. Then about deploying these things to this team, and then it took us a day or two. It ended up taking 2.5 days to produce this awesome video that we'll get to release and share with the public once this thing fully ramps up by the 29th of March, because we're slowly ramping it. But the idea is that I'm not sweating this. I wasn't working late nights and burning the midnight oil. I wasn't jeopardizing my relationship with my family. I wasn't jeopardizing my culture with my team. That's not what we're doing, right? We're so prepared. We need to be so ready to be able to deploy things that need to be deployed when the time comes. And then you have those opportunities. Now, I'm sure you have opportunities in your company, but how you prepare for the moment is where the magic really happens, where we're working towards those outcomes. I want to help you connect to that flow. I want to help you produce better. I want to help you see results faster. And that's what we're working towards, right? So it's practice. We're practicing things. We got design clarity. Now, when we put on the design productivity lens, we got to start thinking like zoom out a little bit, right? Zoom out of that. And we got to start thinking about like, when are we doing things? How are we doing things? What are we doing? And why does it matter? So remember when I was talking to you about the systems of this like workflow of working through how your team is preparing things, how they're understanding and collecting things, how they're focusing, all those steps. You've heard me talk through this, but you've got to know what your flow is for everything that is, if it's a pivotal like workflow for you and your process, you need to know what are the 4 to 5 things for each one of these steps, each one of these little nuggets of how, whatever it is you create. What are the 4 or 5 levers or actions or things that you can do to make those moments amazing? Wow, that was incredible. When you're understanding, collecting information, what are the 4 to 5 things that you can do to make sure that you're setting the room up for success? You're preparing to be able to pull information and collect it from your team, making them feel a part of the journey, making them feel like their buy-in or their voice matters. Going through all these things, right? All of these things are a part of the system, and you have to know like your systems and know how to break them down. A problem or solution of what you're doing, right? Think about how you want to deliver the information. Think about when you can deliver it, how you'll do it, why it's important, who are you talking to? Like really get to their level and reframe and set really good lead with context, like lead with that. The same thing when you're looking at your other building workflows Think about how the systems of these building workflows, where are the problems? Where are the opportunities? How could you optimize it? How could you be more aware where things work and where things do not? And when I was talking about this win of when are you doing these things, like in your stand-ups, your interviews, your status updates, your grooming calls, your product reviews, your brainstorms, those sorts of things. For how you're doing it, you want to make sure that, and I know a lot of these things, but this is practice, right? We're training, we're doing the work. I want you to be stimulated thinking about how do you do these things and thinking about, do you have clarity on your priorities, your responsibilities, your timelines, the values and principles that your team or that you show up with when you're engaging with people, and the what. So thinking about all of these things are quite important. If you're a leader, if you're a manager, if you're a director, you're trying to help drive the goals and not just yourself for the project, but also for your team. You're trying to help your team become better. To do that, you need to know who they are. You need to know and understand what they need and why it's important. You're an outcome driven team looking at outcomes you're trying to drive, the purpose of why it's important, the intention behind the thing, and then always trying to bring in some joy and fun into the life because this is your life. And if we're not bringing a little joy and a little fun into the work that we do, then we're missing out on so much like love and joy and happiness. And that's just unacceptable. We have to be prioritizing these things. And that's where this awareness comes in, right? You learn these systems, you learn these processes, but you also learn about the craftsmanship of everything that you do. It's not much about you do, it's how well you do it and setting that tempo, the pace, and integrate your rituals, your routines, and habits. So if you don't know how to set the tempo, it's literally just coming into a meeting, whether if you're leading the meeting, then you can set it even more. Hey, everybody, super excited that you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about like X, Y, and Z. We're going to talk about this feature, or we're going to talk about this problem, or we're going to talk about this new thing that we just heard from customers today. My intent is that I'm looking for some feedback on this. You have to set the context and be confident about what it is you're going to be showing. You can also, if you're not leading the meeting, then you could be making sure that you're taking notes and that when somebody is driving the meeting, that you're helping support the flow of that meeting. If people aren't talking or people aren't engaged, then you can help the facilitator to make sure people are engaged. Hey, Drew, what do you think? Or hey, Sally, what do you think about this? You can engage the energy in the room to make sure that people are aware. If you're in an in person room, then it's about reading the room. And if there's a whiteboard, you could get up on the whiteboard and take notes on the whiteboard. You can help create that rhythm, that pace, and helping people feel like this is a serious thing. Let's make it happen. Let's show up for each other. And if we keep going through here, like this whole velocity management is thinking about, and this happens quite a bit. So, have you ever played like communication ping pong where you communicate to somebody, they communicate back to you, communicate back to them, and then it just feels maybe you're on the same page or you're not on the same page. When you're not on the same page, it could be really frustrating to just communicate, say, with an engineer or a product manager or a designer. You wanna make sure that when you're playing ping pong, that it feels good. Like, you are going back and forth, and you can even close your eyes, and you know how to talk to this person, you know how they like to receive information, and you know how you can keep this flow going really nice and smooth. You don't wanna be hitting big giant balls back to them, they won't be able to catch it. So think about how you communicate, exchange information back and forth with the people you work with. That can be really helpful. So play a nice game of ping pong with your team when you communicate and ask for information, or you're delivering information. Now, B, with posts and advancements, I look at posts and advancements as a really important part of velocity, increasing your velocity, because a post can have a ton of information, maybe too much information. You can have a TLDR, which is just shrinking what it is you're trying to get across, but making sure that you have a system for how regularly you post to your team or write a post, say on LinkedIn, or write a post to your your individual contributors, like you need a rhythm for how you communicate and share your knowledge. This was something that I learned very quickly when I was at LinkedIn because LinkedIn had up to probably close to 12 different products and services that it had. So every time we had multiple hundreds of designers on the team. So If you're making a post, you're thinking about how do I exchange that information? I need to think about the types of people that are going to receive this. Are they going to have the context that they need to be able to add any value? Do you need to be able to think about all the different stakeholders and when you're writing posts and be able to do it at different levels. So you might have a full team, an all team, you might have an individual team, you might have a leads team. Be sure to make sure that you are writing posts and that you have a system for writing. Now, if you don't like updating your team, find a way to like it because it's so helpful to get that information. And the better that you can give your updates, the more impact that you can have. Same thing goes for advancements. When we're writing advancements, we're thinking about things that will literally help and help drive major impact to the staff. So saying that in an update that you updated this page and just saying that you updated the page is not helpful. You updated the page and now you've unlocked this and this so the customer can do X, Y, and Z. And you're very clear and concise about what it is and the advancement that you created. This could also be for just anything you're trying to really move forward. Think about how you would write the advancement when it's done, and that will help you write it out like a week ahead. So if you're working on, say, on tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday, you're planning for the week ahead, just like the bigger things you're trying to move forward just for that week. Think about how you would write it as if it's already done and you'd be sharing it with your CEO or people that you report to and write it out. Boom, write it out like five of those things. What are the advancements for this project? I'm going to finish this. I'm going to finish that. It's going to do this. So that will help what the end state is that you're working towards. This is something I train designers on because a lot of times designers will just be like, I need to create I need to create this page. And they're not thinking about what are you going to finish on the page or what's the experience going to be when you finish it. And I think that will help you visualize and envision what the end state is. And then you can work backwards from there when you're writing these things out. And number C, efficiency is intelligence. I'm just thinking like the more efficient you can be with like your workspace, your tools, your abilities, that's intelligence. Like I mean, AI can't do that. AI can't organize your intention of what it is you're trying to do. So capitalize on your impact by being efficient with things. If things are taking you too long, find ways to be more efficient and know that speed is money. Like the faster you can go, the faster you can build. It's not about how fast you do it, it's about how well you do it. You want to be at a good quality, but remember that the faster you are, you're going to get either paid more or you're going to have more impact for your team because you can cycle through things faster. If you're a designer and you're good, really good at building landing pages or building an app, after you do it 100 times, you can go pretty fast on how to build the next one. So that speed is very valuable in the space. And it's also valuable in engineering. It's also valuable in products. It's also very valuable in design. So think about like where could you be a little bit faster? Or if you were faster in a certain area, what would that give you? What would that unlock for you? What would it unblock? If you could do something that has been slowing you down, what would that look like if you could speed it up? So the goal, right? We're trying to again optimize our design effectiveness so we can scale, we can learn, and we can grow with the teams. We went through the first training I was talking about earlier. Next week is design impacts. We are working through these force multipliers. So here's some examples. Like when you have a system in place, you could have multiple systems in place. Your systems that you design and that you craft have major impacts on your velocity, major impacts. Like even if you're trying to create a Friday finishers, this might not mean anything to you, but this was on a back sheet of a receipt. Yeah, almost like 10 things that I was working through. And I know what these things are, but these were major impactful things that I was moving forward at the time. And it could be as simple as like a Friday finisher list, or it could be as simple as even in the growth day tool, you can use the plan tool to put out what your Friday finishers are. And these are advancements and you can have those in there. You should just know what your big advancements are. Another big example of like design productivity is I was designing these cards for my team so that we could start building these standards for how we do daily stand-ups, how we do design team syncs, how we do refinement meetings, how we do research sessions. Like putting the frameworks for how we break down that hour to make sure we're hitting on all the most important things. So building little frameworks to help drive consistency, also drive quality. So important. There's other things where you can even draw on a piece of paper. This is how it's drawn. Like some of even my notes when I was training this. So I was like, know your priorities, know your tools, develop the systems, master your schedule, block times, learn how to block the times, protect your windows to execute, share your work. Like these are just like tips and things that when I was training about this, these were just really important things. And that's another example. You can also like on any sheets of these, any like sheet that you have, you can build and design like little systems. Like for this one, this was like a purpose system where somebody was asking me like, how do you like build purpose, Drew? What do you like? How does it work for you? And I drew a quick little figure eight. And this also what I do for a growth loop. I put in the very top, I put reflects, I put take an action, learn, and then I put on the bottom left live. So I just wrote these like four, and this is like just my intrinsic, basically came up with this really quick. And then I wrote down, okay, I want to love and I want to joy. If I'm going to do anything with a purpose, I want it to be connected to love and I want it to be connected to joyful experiences. And then I went through each of these categories of like myself, my social relationships, my skills, my, what was this other one? Service, and then my spirit. And then I just listed these things out of in the self. Those are all my like clarity trainings. The social relationships, those are all like the people, like my alumni, my network, my family, my community, my team. Okay, great. I have my skills, the things that I'm building, the things I'm working on. For my schedule, I had Growth Day, Next Level UX, LinkedIn Learning, and Stanford because I was coaching at Stanford. So I had these are the networks that I was wanting to support. And then for my spirit, I put in there, what did I put in there? Adventure. For my spirit, I had source energy, nature, and adventure. Those are all big drivers for me. So I show you this because I want you to know that you can create a system of anything by just writing out and creating like a structure for how you're thinking about yourself. Like you can create a system for anything. This is like a journal reflection in a sense, but it's also a system that I can follow when I'm trying to like, how do I talk about my purpose? These are the things that if you can answer these questions about how you do these things, you're on your way. Another example for this like Wednesday workshop, your Wednesday workshops as you any meeting or anything that you're talking about, think about how you can bring the value. So just like before this Wednesday workshop that I was having, I drew out the three things that we were going to be talking about. So we're talking about upsells, edge cases, and layout. We're talking about like growth groups. We're talking about there's this confidence campaign that was running. So I was thinking about releasing the content and like, where is it going? It's in staging environments and production environment. We got to generate the content. How are we going to onboard people? So these are things that I took notes on before I went to the meeting because this was the thing that I facilitated and worked through with my team. And there was a time where sometimes I want to write things out because it allows me to just reflect about what it is I'm going to do instead of putting it into a computer or into an app. And if I don't feel that connection with the ink, when I can feel a connection with the ink, it's like way more implanted into my brain. So at 5 a.m., this was like a daily plan that I made. It's just these were what I was doing. I had every day, every daggone thing blocked out and I'd execute it. Same thing for Tuesdays. Again, you can write out the things that you're working through and how you're building these things. These are all part of my development. This was all part of my training. But again, you can create your own systems for how you're moving things forward. And this is an example when I was at Stanford, we were training and teaching all these like all the students to, and like we were doing reviews of their products and their services. So when I'm sitting there, I'm taking notes of all these teams and what they're trying to do and what they're trying to achieve and what they're working through. So then when they're coming around and talking to us, instead of being like a coach that was just like, like just consuming the information, I like was viciously writing notes about every team so that when they came up and talked to me, I could go to this thing. What was your team's name again? And they're like, white paper. And then I'd go down to white paper and I could be like, oh, yeah, you guys were talking about this and this. And it triggers in my brain how I can support them. I want you to do the same thing with your teams. If your team's telling you ideas, like, you can write it out and you can like really take what they're saying is valuable, and you can do the same thing in notes. So look, there's always going to be room for improvement. It's always going to be there. You got to take responsibility, mastering your craft. This includes that work flow, the team's flow, like those priorities. So take stock in that. And I showed this also last week. So if you don't have like plans for how you can get better, I'm going to keep reinforcing. Do the six big clarity questions. Make sure you know what your goals are. Make sure you have a plan to be able to get there. Make sure you understand your weekly rhythm. If you haven't yet done this, make sure that you are tackling, you understand a vision, you have goals, you have plans, you know how you're consuming knowledge and information, just like showing up today. You're training, you're playing, you're working through. What I want to do for the rest of the time is this was like mapping out your weekly system, knowing what is your flow, your weekly loop, and list out 5 things that you can do to improve your design productivity, like thinking through today what you can do. And what I want to actually do for the rest of the time is I want to design one of these with you, like a growth loop. I also want to build out some of these people and processes. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to walk through some of these things. And then I'm going to go ahead and pause this, pause the screen share, and then come into screen sharing over in Figma. But I know I asked you to get like a piece of paper. So I'm going to grab a marker, and what I want you to do, let's see. All right. So on the piece of paper, draw a line through the middle. So just like this first, just a straight line. If you don't make a straight line, no big deal. Just draw it like this. Then the first thing that I want you to do is write, okay, I'm going to switch to a thinner. Write the word team and put it in the first block. We got to do all this in 17 minutes. I think we can do it. So you guys do get that so far? Okay, we got team. In the next one, we're going to write grow circle and circle that, right? Basic stuff right now. Then we're going to do the growth. Now I'm really challenging you guys in the third and the other quadrant. Draw one of these, a growth loop, figure 8. Okay. To keep up, growth loop. Okay. You guys are awesome. Okay. So get your growth loop. And then, okay. Now in the fourth quadrant, do a box like this. Okay. Do one of those. And then we're going to put projects, passions, and I'll show you again. Don't worry. You're doing amazing. All right. We did it. So now we have this little quick framework. Do you see it? I wish I would have used a different pen for this one so it would have been consistent, but it isn't. But I will live. I will just redo it. All right. So we good. All right. So now what we want to do is I want you, and we have 15 minutes, so you can take a minute. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw the people's names around the team that you interact with on a daily, weekly basis, like people you work with every day and every week. And I want you to write their names in this team bucket. Okay. So take a minute and do that now. And just so you know how small I'm doing it, this is how small I'm doing it. Little Dune, Kopesh, Lauren, Nemanja, Lauren, Brendan, Kopesh, Nemanja. Yeah, it's a little too, it's too Hansenmer. Okay. How you guys doing on your teams? I know you guys got big teams. Okay, cool. So let's move on to the next. I want you to write the people in your life that you feel like you go to share things that you're growing in, things that you're learning, like basically your posse, you like your growth people. You can add me to your growth circle because we're here training together. You can add me. You can add people. Just add. Try to think of like 4 to 5 people. Go. And this can be people that you don't know. They don't know you, but you can maybe like people you like maybe learn from their content too. That could be part of your growth circle. So don't feel like you have to have their phone number in your pocket to know them. That's not required. And if we want to just use the hand raise feature for when you're done, that would actually be really cool. Let's go. All right. So we're making progress, right? And I even just you can draw like little lines to them if you want to for fun, like to back to your team. Because you might need to add more people, like maybe to your team or to your growth circle. So we got our growth circle. Awesome. Now we're going to go to the harder one. Okay. The harder one is the growth loop. So I was showing you earlier this like growth loop figure eight. Now, I'm going to give you a basic. So in the top left of the every growth loop that we still have to create, I am going to insist that you have a reflection part of your growth loop. So in the very top left, write the word reflect, because a lot of growth starts with reflection, my friends. We have to get good at that. Then we're going to be like action, learning, and I'll show you this in a second. And then action, learning, planning. Okay. So now look at this one. So we have reflect, learn, plan, action. We're reflecting, we're taking action. We need to keep learning and we need to keep planning, because the plan is what's going to help us move to the next. So let me know when you've written down just this. Okay, great job. Okay, now inside of this growth loop, there's buckets of things, right? So I want you to think about in your day, how do you split up your bucket? And you don't have to fully, maybe just write a couple things. Think about what you would fill in your growth loop. Like I had one on ones as a really important part. Like the one on ones I have with my team, it's a really part of my growth every week because it helps me prepare how I'm going to set my team up for success every single week. So I want you to have yours and your buckets in there filled out. I'm going to share my screen again just so you have another reference for this. And I'm also going to check the time. Okay, we got 8 minutes. We're doing great. So in here, this is an example of one of my growth loops. So journaling is part of it. Benchmarking, like I need to know how I'm doing in things. I need priorities. And I know what my priorities are with my family and everybody else, but I got to have them. I got to have a planning process. I have execution process. So like, when am I actually going to get in and do the work? I got my wellness because I want to live a long time and I want my family to experience me for a long time. You being here is participation. You being here is practice. You being here is point like in a certain so fill in your blocks. Then after you fill in your blocks, put in the middle above that you're going to be coaching and you're going to be teaching, because as you grow, as you work through things, as you like take on new things, you need to be able to build a practice where you're teaching things and coaching, because the teaching is going to help you build mastery level expertise on the things that you're doing. And the teaching or the coaching is contributing back to people that are trying to maybe get to where you're currently at. So that coaching is going to be a lifelong thing where you're going to be coaching. Maybe it's just your friends or you're helping teach them things. If you can keep that a part of your growth loop, you're going to find that you'll learn faster, you'll grow faster, you'll have more impact. So, did everybody finish? My one on one goes in the reflect state, mainly because I put it in the front of the week because it's helping me gauge and recalibrate where I'm at, where my team is at, and where they need to go. If I can reflect and be prepared and ready, it's going to help catapult them for the weeks ahead. The better I can show up for them, the better that they're going to show up for me. The better I can show up and prepare them, the better that they're going to execute the projects. So I take those very seriously. All right. So we're in the last quadrant, 5 minutes left. And I hope this is so far like opening, because the last couple minutes is where the aha starts to happen. So what I want you to do now is write down 1 to 2 things for each of the blocks for your passions, your projects. And I want you to write out the projects or the things that you have wanted to do or dreamed of doing, and maybe you haven't done it yet, or maybe you're in the process of doing it. But write out those quick projects, and I'm going to do the same thing. So each of the quadrants, there's going to be like a couple things, right? So the way I like to do it, I just put 3 little triangles, and I'm going to fill it in. 3 little triangles. So I got my little creators, makers, and 3.0. My passions is Jamie, and then personal, career. Okay. I went rapid fast. So like I'll read off some of mine real quick. So like for projects, like I'm doing this little creators project that I absolutely am so stoked about. It's to help kids learn how to design and get in art and get in entrepreneurship and have fun and build a career, like super fun. Makers, it's a reality show that I've designed that I want to produce with remote designers and teams to show and demonstrate the creative process, their creative process. This is gonna be cool. Have you seen Blown Away? Something like that. Like I will do it. Just need to figure out, I'm figuring out the pieces. Growth Day 3.0, we're rebuilding Growth Day 3.0. It's going to be just legit. For my personal, I want to be like a ripped 190. I want to also keep hosting families and friends that come to the house and get to hang out at our house here in Napa. I want to have a lot of adventures this year with Jamie. I want to write a book on the power of design intention. And I want to keep training with my son, Jude, on all things that he's really passionate about as a young creative. And then I also, for my career, I want to be like this year, I want to be the world's best performance product and design coach. I also want to launch Little Creators this year and scale my next level UX training this year. I'd love to hear what your buckets are if you ever want to share them with me. But the reason why we mapped out the first two buckets, okay, because this week's design productivity. So as you go through your meetings every week, processes every day, like these people that you work with, if you know what their goals are, if you know what they're trying to achieve, if you know what problems they're faced with, you can help start creating a lot more awareness. So, as a homework assignment, I want you to do some intel on your team. I want you to start thinking about, oh, wow, I work with 20 people every day or 10 people every week. What are they asking me for? What are they trying to do? So, we got to learn about that. I want you to start learning about your team. Okay. For your growth circle, I want you to think about, for all the people that you wrote down, when was the last time you text them? When was the last time you messaged them? When was the last time you shared some insights or some helpful information with them? And if you haven't been doing that, I want you to double down on doing it and start reconnecting with your team. Now, if we had more time, we would go through, we do a share out of these things, but I wanted you to know, like, this sort of thing you can run with your team. You can do this with your team, and if you share it, you'll learn so much. So you guys have an amazing rest of your day. I appreciate you guys so much. I'll see you in the next one.